Hi there, welcome along to this special live programme celebrating the 20-year anniversary of stopping the 10. It may be 20 years ago, but as you can see, Murdo MacLeod, Tom Boyd and Simon Donnelly haven't changed a bit from that glorious day here in paradise when Henrik and Harold calmed the nerves and protected Celtic's 9-in-a-row record.
They can't come any more significant than this. A win gives Celtic the title and even more importantly stops Rangers 10 in a row. Larsson always has been menacing this defence, seeking an angle and gets it right again. Look at the way he seemed to stroll across midfield and then find a target. Celtic support right behind their team. Volume of noise increases. Tommy Boyd inspired by that. McNamara on the right-hand side. Here's Harold Bradford. Can he miss this one? No! No, he can't! A man who's missed so many chances gets it right that time. And there it is! The title of Celtic. There's to be no 10 in a row at Ibrox. And don't they know, Wim Jansen in sheer delight.
Murdo MacLeod, we saw you there with the trophy in your hand. Starting with you, just take us back to that day in particular, you know, your job with Wim Jansen, preparing the players for that game mentally. What was it like?
Obviously, with the game the previous week, when we thought we were going to win the title at Dunfermline, ended up a draw. Sid got one of the goals there, or got our goal. But then, when you're looking at this game at home, the whole week, everything's all about stopping the 10 in a row. Everyone's all about that. The players are all up for the game. But all the players, good training throughout the whole week. They knew what they were there for. Every player knew this is going to be the special day.
Tom, as the captain and a lifelong Celtic fan, you were obviously aware what this title would mean to the fans. By this stage in the season, talking about the final game, I presume that all the foreign lads, if they didn't know what it meant at the start of the season, by this stage they did know.
I think you could tell. I think Murdo says it the previous game. Everybody was telling you, look, we have to do this. There's almost a generation of folk supporters come to Celtic Park and not seen the title being lifted. Murdo had lifted it as a player and on numerous occasions, and that was my first. But the pressure was on. It was intense, and the key thing for the week was just trying to keep everything as calm as possible and not get too excited, not get carried away with the moment.
Simon, it is 20 years ago. It's incredible to think that. But is it an achievement that fans still talk to you about to this day?
100%. 100%. It's one of the most important days, I think, in the club's history. You know, to preserve the record of the Lisbon Lions years before, for your rivals to go and beat that. You know, it was unthinkable. So it was so important at the time. Did I grasp the importance of it? Probably not, but I certainly do nowadays.
Because of course, as Murdo just mentioned, you could, I don't know if you ever think about it like this, but when I was looking back on the season, you could have been the guy to score the goal that stopped the 10 had it not been for the Falconbridge equaliser for Dunfermline.
Yeah, I think me and Boyd have, you know, we work here match days and we've spoke about it several times over the last period, just because leading up to this anniversary, I think from a personal point of view, they've been great. And I've woke up cold sweats with Falconbridge in my thoughts over the years. But yeah, it was good that we came back here and won it.
There was a wee story that Simon was telling me. He was at a game at Dunfermline just this season, I think, was it not? Yeah. And getting the hospitality, and somebody says, "Do you remember the name of the boy who scored the goal?" And he says, "Do I remember it?" I says, "I'm asleep every night." He would have been the guy that got the goal, but it was all part of the big, massive plan. Like it was here just recently, to get us back to Celtic Park to win it at Paradise.
I think that was the thing that most people, or all the people within the dressing room had said, we just left it a week. We'll get them in. We'll win it next week. That's all right. No problem.
It's funny because I mentioned there at the start about Henrik and Harold calming the nerves, and they did in different ways because it was so important. for Celtic to get that early goal, and we saw it there. Henrik Larsson with a wonderful finish.
Yeah, it was a great start to the game, and it's funny the amount of people everybody's been involved in speak to you over all the years, and their big memory for the first goal was the stadium shaking, the stand was shaking because it was all getting rebuilt, and they said, oh, at one point they're all kind of looking at each other, are you feeling this moving?
That's right.
But a fantastic start, and obviously everyone's singing and dancing after 2 or 3 minutes and thinking this is great, it's going to be a lot of goals. Then the game died down, we had most of the ball but we couldn't get another goal, and it wasn't until you started the move, Tommy. A great ball up the right hand side, great ball across to Harold, great finish, and then everyone's beginning to think, can we start to smile a wee bit here and
because
think...
St Johnstone had chances. There
No,
was
they had
one with the header from George Boyle. Yeah.
He put it over the crossbar, but I think that was about the only time.
But I think the thing at the time was we knew Rangers were getting a result, I think, at Tannadice.
Yeah.
Well, I certainly did. You know,
Well,
you could feel it for the crowd, and at 1-0, it was really nervy.
I think that was the thing. You know, had Rangers been getting beat and we were winning 1-0, regardless of what their result or our result would have been, we'd have won the league. So we knew with the crowd not in party mode at that time, celebrating the goal was fantastic. But we knew we needed a second goal, and
We'll come back to that day then, in particular the celebratory T-shirts and the message that was on the T-shirts that day. We'll come back to that. I'm also looking for your comments as well, so whether you're watching on Facebook, on Twitter, live on YouTube or Celtic TV, leave your comments below and I'll try and read some of them out as we continue with this chat. But going back to the start of the season, of course Paul McStay had retired, so we didn't have his influential playmaking skills in the middle of the park, and of course Wim came in and yourself, Murdo, came in as assistant manager. Tom, from the players' perspective, with this new manager coming in, knowing what an important season it was, can you remember your own reactions when you heard that Wim was coming in?
Well, like a lot of people didn't know too much about Wim. When you done your research, you knew that he was a top class player and played against Celtic all those years ago in the European Cup final. To think of somebody come in, it would take a little bit of time, and I think that's what we didn't appreciate. I think a lot of people thought, well, we need a manager in, It took a while to get Wim in, and for him to get his system into play, and that's probably why the start of the first couple of games wasn't as what we would have hoped for. But it did put us in behind the back, almost snookered at that time, we're losing our first 2 league games. But Wim come in and tried to change the system, a slightly different system to what I think most of us were we talk about the one striker with the 2 wider guys. I think that
was that like, Murdo? Because did you know Wim beforehand, or
no.
So how did your relationship come about?
In Holland, when we were over there pre-season, I was on the pitch with all the boys, and then all of a sudden a minibus arrived and Davy Hayes out, Wim Jansen, Jock Brown, everybody's out, and all of a sudden here's a new manager. So that I met Wim the same time as all the boys, and then we chatted away every time we sat down for lunch and dinner at night. We'd always have a wee chat, and then just getting to know him over a couple of days, and then I think within a day and a half he asked me to become his assistant manager, because I was here as a coach. I was asked to come back by Davy Hayes, so I said I'd come back. He says, I don't know if you're going to be the assistant manager or a coach, a reserve coach, whatever, but we've not got a new manager in yet. And then once I'd met up with him, he asked me to become the assistant manager, and right away, delighted.
So Tom mentioned, Simon, the first couple of games, because Celtic lost the first 2 games that season, in fact bottom of the league after 2 games. Incredible to think that. Were the players finding it difficult to work the new system, or how did it all settle down?
I think it was so much the system. I think it was just the number of new players that were coming in. We just had a new gaffer. Murdo just came in. Everything was new, and it was taking probably a bit of time for us just to settle. The first 2 games weren't ideal. Through Easter Road, defeat, back here against Dunfermline. I think we went up to St Johnstone in the 3rd game and got a good result there, and followed that up with another visit there to win in the Cup during the week, and I think that just kind of kicked us on a wee bit. But it was just, I think, the amount of players that were coming through the door at the time, it was natural it was going to take a wee bit of time to blend.
Yeah, I think, Gerry, just what Simon's touched on there, I think if you look modern day, if someone says, oh, we've got nine new players for the first team squad, you think, well, that's far too many, and it'll take an awful long time for all the boys to settle in. But gradually, they would never all come in at the same point. Yeah. But Reaper came in, and then Burley's in, and Paul Lambert's in, Henrik arrived, Darren Jackson.
Characters as well.
Aye.
You just mentioned them.
All just about international players as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a list here. Darren Jackson, Craig Burley, Henrik Larsson, Jonathan Gould, Mark Reaper, Harold Bratback, Paul Lambert. As you said, big characters, big international players.
Yeah, it was, you know, and I think that's something that we needed to have as quick an impact, you know, because, you know, playing a new team up, Muddle's there as being a coach and a manager. He knows how long it takes to try and gel a team into it. And I think, you know, given 2 games, and I think they started to kick in after that, as Simon says, the 3rd game, I think that says a lot to how the coaching start for it, to get us all to gel together, to get round to the system that Vim and Murdo were trying to get us to play. Yeah,
because you mentioned that game at St Johnstone after the first 2 defeats, and I think that was the start of 8 games, an 8-game winning streak, which took Celtic to the top of the league after that. Yeah. The games against Rangers were always going to be pivotal that season, them being, you know, 9 in a row champions. You know, we'll get on to the good ones, but it didn't start out as well, you know, going to Ibrox and losing that one. Yeah. Can you remember that day, Murdo, and how much of a sickener it was?
Oh, it was gutted. I was always gutted if I ever lost a game to Rangers, but especially when you're on the coaching side and you've got the players on the pitch and you're just hoping to go there. I think Paul Lambert was on the bench. That was he'd just arrived at the club. So I think he came on late in the game, but losing that game, you're in a downer for the game, but you're still upbeat that we can still beat them. Overall, you know, win the title. And I think that was the most important thing, that the players, they get stronger every game as the season went on. Simon touched on it, going up to St Johnstone, we won the league game, we won the League Cup game up there, 2 very good performances, and I think all of a sudden everything started falling into place. New players come in, that was Paul Lambert just arriving into the squad then, so then he gets in the team, so then the team all of a sudden becomes stronger and a recognised starting 11.
Yeah, it's important to mention as well that it wasn't just Celtic and Rangers that season. You know, for a large part of the season, Hearts were really strong as well, and it was almost a 3-way race, wasn't it, Tom?
Yeah, Hearts had some wonderful players on the team, excellent players, and they just failed. Just towards the tail end, I think eventually the strength and squad that they had couldn't match what we had and the quality that we had, as well as Rangers at that time as well. So I think they certainly, you know, gave it a good go right up until the last few games of the season. So yeah, it was a 3-horse race for a long time. And there were a lot of people talk, you know, about, oh, it's just Celtic and Rangers, but certainly Hearts were there for a long period of that league campaign.
Was there very much a kind of a sense, an overall feeling of stopping Rangers winning the title and what that would mean right from early on in the season, Simon, or was that just a message that kind of came through as the season went on?
I think we knew the job that was in hand, you know. I mean,
they didn't know it before they were signing all the new players.
It was the game at
That's
Ibrox,
what they were
touching the game at Ibrox, I think it was it Gough? Was Gough not giving it the 10? So we all knew, particularly the homegrown boys. You touched on the foreigners there coming in, but if they didn't know when they first came off the plane, they certainly did, you know, after a month of being here at the club.
Did Vim understand the stage that he was coming in Celtic's history and what that would mean to Celtic?
He did, because obviously I don't know what the board had said to him before, but he knew that this was his remit to go there. But right at the very beginning, Vim says this is what it's all about. I spoke to Vim 10 minutes ago before we arrived here, and he's just absolutely delighted that people are still talking about that 20 years ago, the anniversary. And he says, I do remember from the first game at Easter Road to the last game against St Johnstone. He remembers all the games and what it meant to the football club.
As you look back and you talk to supporters, and he says, you know, he's asking, do they still remember that? You know, for a lot of supporters, that was the second most important game ever behind the European Cup, because of the significance of what we had to try and stop, what we had to change. It was great for us winning our first league game, but I think it was more important for the club that we stopped the 10 in a row to protect the history. So yeah, it will be talked about to eternity.
And it is. Thanks very much for your comments coming in. Lloyd Patrick Jepson says, can't believe it's been 20 years. That was the team that really got me into supporting Celtic, and I've never looked back since. Josephine Docherty says, I was there that day and I won't ever forget that magical day, etched on my memory for life. Gary Scottish Eagle his Twitter name, says, my niece's first communion was that day. I didn't miss the game, but my brothers had to. We celebrated at home afterwards. Sheer joy. And Anton Legrandier, I don't know if he was named after Anton Rogan, like Brendan Rodgers' boy. Remember it well, he says, in the North Stand, cheering Henrik's goal, then nail-biting until Harold scored. Quite a day. And as you say, Tom, I mean, that just shows you what it meant to the fans at that time.
I'm speaking to so many myself, Simon, we did the lounges here. Murdo was speaking to so many supporters and the significance of what it was and the joy. The streets of Glasgow and Coatbridge and wherever, I think, were at a standstill with, I think, supporters doing the huddle all over the Scotland, probably all over the world at that time. But yeah, we knew what it was being, and it was the feeling. I think I'm not quite an emotional person a lot of times, but see, after Henrik scored the first goal, I was nearly in tears, thinking of the significance of that goal. We still had about another 80 odd minutes to go. 88 minutes to go, and I'm like, oh, I better calm myself down a little bit, you know.
And then when George O'Boyle nearly scored, you were nearly in tears again.
I was looking for somebody to blame or whatever, you know.
Talking about the Rangers goals, Simon, the first game against Rangers here was perhaps, or was it at the time, was that the real pressure one? Obviously, you're at home, you've already lost the game at Ibrox, go a goal down as well. How important was that Stubbs equaliser? All right, we didn't win the game, but we didn't lose the game. And in the context of the season, how important was that late equaliser by Stubbs?
It was huge. I think you can look at, over the season, I think there's a few key moments. That was one of them. I think it was important not to lose ground at the time, and just keep up there. I wouldn't say it's significant as the win here, with Burley and Lambert, but just to keep us on their trail at the time, it was an important goal. I think it was late in the game as well. I remember Dan Jackson tripping up trying to get the ball at the net as well, if anybody wants to have a look at the footage.
That was Darren's style of play, is it?
Is that the kind of game that, even though you've drawn it, because it's a late equaliser, it feels like a win?
Well, it was a boost, because obviously losing the first game, you're expected to win here, and then not winning, and you're 1-0 down and then a late goal, and it's a massive boost to all the players, because they're no any further behind Rangers at that time. So I think it was so important for us to get that draw.
There's a lot of players that hadn't been scarred for previous years, where I've played in quite a lot of them through the early 90s and stuff like that. You would lose 1-0 so many times, there'd be one mistake or something like that, and we wouldn't get that late goal. And it's not too often that we scored.
Rangers for the game and then lose a goal.
Not too often we did score late goals, and thankfully on that day Stubbs popped up with the header, and that was, it did feel a little bit like a victory, which it does in most games. You score a goal, if maybe I can't remember how the game really went in that one. If you're not dominating the game as much and you get a goal like that, you feel as though you've certainly taken something from nothing really.
How important was the League Cup that season? We'll get onto Europe as well, because there was a couple of memorable games here at Celtic Park. How important was that Coca-Cola League Cup and putting down that early marker and showing early on that we were the dominant team, Simon?
It was a key moment again in the season. I think you only had to look back to 1995. I think that was the last time we'd won silverware, and it'd been such a long time before that. So this group of players just coming together so quickly to kind of nail the League Cup. I think we played it. It was back then when you played the final in November. I think they changed it over the years to further on the season. It was at Ibrox, yeah. So to get that, in the cabinet, it just gave us that wee bit of confidence. As Murdo says, I think that team just grew stronger and stronger as the season went on. I look back to the Liverpool European game as well, where we competed with a really good Liverpool team, and I think everybody after that game took huge confidence for it. And you could say the same about the League Cup. The fact that we had that trophy in the cabinet straight away, and then we could kick on for the league.
It's funny that, because people look back on that game against Liverpool, the 2-2 game here, and it's the frustrating memory of Steve McManaman scoring the late goal. But it's interesting what Simon says there, Murdo, that you used that as a kind of a benchmark to say, no, we can compete with really big sides, and we are a good team, and use that to kind of fuel the rest of the season.
Well, I think it was so important for the players. As I said, they were getting better all the time, but for Liverpool, one of the best European football clubs, and to come here in a fantastic game, went toe-to-toe with them all again, and we're in front, and then the McManaman goal was just one of these ones that was...
Someone tackle him.
I don't know if you remember, we worked it down the right. We were going to make it 3-1 the way we were playing. It was as if we were going to get the next goal. We've worked it down the right. It's came out their right, and I think it was Vikhor should have
And
took a yellow card.
by the way, there was a 3 or 4 of our players could have just said, take the yellow card, take it for the team.
Well, McManus picked the ball up inside his own half.
But he's run all the way, he's got the goal, and there's a Celtic fan behind the goal. And his actions just summed the whole thing up. He was gutted, frustration, because if we'd beaten them that night, that would have been one of the best results of the whole season, apart from the last game.
I mean, we've seen in recent years, historically, Scottish teams who go far in Europe. I mean, look at the Seville team that went far in Europe that season, and then Rangers won the treble domestically. Yeah. You know, might it have been a bit of a blessing in disguise that we didn't have that European campaign as well? No. All right.
No. You want to be there. You want to knock out Liverpool. But just see, if we'd knocked Liverpool out, possibly we could have won the league earlier in the season, because the players would have been away up there.
It was a huge.
Do you know what I mean? It was.
Boyd will back us up. It was a huge boost because you've got guys coming out of the club, and although they're good season pros, and we knew most of them, there's still that, you know, moment where, are we going to gel? Are we going to actually? And I thought that night was the night we kind of clicked and thought, you know, we've got a chance.
And Everything's always in the League Cup as well. Was not lost in some supporters, but it was only our second trophy in 8-9 years, right? Which is, when you look back in that, proves that come the following season, we've got a wee trophy sitting down in front of the team 40. Which is good, you know, that's something that we hadn't had, and that would prove that we'd be winners. A League Cup that it is, we're still winners from that season, so we could have taken some from that. But I think, you know, Liverpool game certainly gives us a huge lift.
Thanks for your comments. Phil Williamson says, I hope no young Celtic fan ever has to suffer like we did for 9 years. The sheer relief I felt that day was indescribable. Matty Boy says, I could have jogged home to Port Glasgow after that game against St Johnstone. Adrenaline rushing through my body. Tears of joy running down my face. A relief I hadn't felt before or felt since. I was celebrating for days afterwards. And Dancing Boy says, amazing day. Joyful after Henrik scored. Nervous at half-time knowing that the other lot were winning. Then Harold scored with 20 minutes to go. Place goes mental. My boy was 8 and he only knew being second best. The joy on his face made it all worthwhile. And Paul Robertson says, my heart was in my mouth at 1-0 just before half-time when that George O'Boyle was left unmarked and ballooned that header over the bar when it looked easier to score. Great memories from you coming through on that day. 20 years ago, yesterday it is, we're celebrating 20 years since stopping the 10. Simon, you mentioned some of the pivotal games. So we get to the New Year's derby here at Celtic Park, and traditionally, as it had been, Murdo and I were talking about this earlier today, that whoever won that game traditionally went on to win the league, and Celtic hadn't won that game in so many years. Yeah. We can all remember the Craig Burley goal, but everybody can remember Paul Lambert's goal. Just how pivotal was that game?
Huge. I think Boydie touches on it as well. Over the last few seasons before, we had a lot of good play against Rangers, and they would break away, whether it was a Gascoigne or a Laudrup, and we'd ultimately get beat. So it was a huge one. It was just to say, you know, this race is serious, and we're here for the duration. I think the 2 goals are brilliant. I think Jackie's reversed one into Butler for the first. Lambo's took the roof off the place for the second one.
You're talking about that. It was significant. It was 10 years actually since that was the first time in 10 years. Yeah, that was it. But this, you know, but it was like one of the games going before. We dominated the game. Yeah. We had chances after chance. Gordon was great, had some great saves, and then it took 2 wonderful goals to get by them, and that did give us that wee boost.
And the context, I know it's a kind of a well-used phrase to say it was a real 6-pointer, but the context of that going into that game, Murdo, we were 4 points behind Rangers. In fact, we were in 3rd place, a point behind Hearts as well. 4 points behind Rangers. So if we'd lost that game, 7 points as it was, we won it, and it was just a point. Yeah, well,
you always think after you get by the new year, that's you going towards the end of the season. So that's you've got to be in place. And I just felt that victory and the performance as well. I thought the performance was fantastic. Yeah. No, I thought that was the best, maybe the best performance of the whole season.
What about Paul Lambert? Does he talk often about that goal?
Good question. In fact, the thing was that, if you remember, he scored one like that the following week, where we drew the game. I think it was against Motherwell. That's right. He scored every bit as good as well, not wouldn't be as good as that one. You know, that was fantastic. But I think he's got a few of them in his locker.
So did you feel after that, because of this symbolism of finally winning one of the New Year's games, did you feel going into the dressing room, well, this league's ours now? Or is it just looking back?
Well, we went to the top of the league. I mean, we put ourselves in a secure position. We just kept ourselves within the race at that time.
We closed the gap, didn't we? That was the most important thing,
And maybe put some doubts in the Rangers players' minds.
That was massive. And I think you could tell the pressure building on both teams towards the end, because we dropped points. I think both teams dropped points that you wouldn't have expected in a running, just because of that. I think that was just the pressure building on both teams.
So we're getting towards the end of the season now. 3 games to go. It's still between Celtic and Rangers, and you know the last 3 games 0-0 against Hibs. Then you've got the game against Dunfermline, where Celtic, we just had to win that one. Simon scores and Craig Falconbridge. Ali Mitchell then helped Celtic, because that was the famous game at Ibrox where all the time was added on, you know, and he then scores he then scores that goal.
Well, the wee story about that one was obvious. I think Simon was the same. I think at the time we were meeting up round about, it was we the game the following day, and we were all meeting up. I was with Henrik, and I'm sure you were, but we were travelling into Celtic Park to meet up to go to the hotel for the game. I think Henrik nearly crashed the car when we heard that Ali Mitchell had scored the goal. He was driving in, so it was quite significant, you know. So we knew, we thought, and I think we were cheering at that time, thinking, well, we'll get a chance to win it the next day.
I had the radio on in the house, and I was starting to listen to the game, and the game's going on, and it's getting to the last 20 minutes, still nothing each, last 15. Then I had to go out the room, so I left it away on the other side of the house. I'm away, and I put the telly on, and I'm just watching, I don't know, just watching the telly, and then all I heard was the commentator shouting, "It's a goal!" And I went off.
You're thinking, oh no.
No, aye. And I went through, and it's Ali Mitchell, and I'm jumping about on loan.
Of course, the significance of that was Ali McCoist, Brian Laudrup, and I think Walter Smith's last Ibrox game.
Yeah, that's right. There was a lot of the big hitters were leaving at that point. So, but for them to lose that game, that set us up for the next day to go and win the title.
I can't actually say I had any sympathy for him, Gerry, at that moment when I heard Ali Mitchell had scored that goal. I think McMurdo, and that's what Henrik nearly cast the car. We were jumping about inside his car as well.
What was the feeling like after the 1-1 game at Dunfermline? Because effectively you'd blown the chance to win the league. The fans were expecting it after that Kilmarnock the day before. Can you remember what your kind of instant reaction was? I mean, Tom, did you have a role to kind of keep the players?
I can remember what a certain individual supporter says coming out onto the team bus as we're coming home, kind of thing, and it wasn't too complimentary. But we knew we had a chance. You know, you had a home game here against St Johnstone. We were going quite good at that season. I think we actually, if they'd have won the game, could have possibly finished in a European place. So they had something to play for. So for us going out here, it was, listen, playing at Celtic Park, we knew that's our chance, our best chance, and thankfully we got that.
Thankfully, Henrik Larsson became such a legend for Celtic. That was his first season. Of course, his career didn't get off to the best start. You know, that game at Easter Road, he gave the ball to Chick Charnley, but what a player he was for us that season.
Listen, I think we do remind Henrik, I think, quite often about his very first pass, and he hates it to this day. About his very, because he has.
He blames Darren Jackson.
He did.
Darren came short for it.
He blamed Darren Jackson.
He came short for it, and Henrik's trying to find him, so he tries to deflect the blame onto Dan.
I think interesting thing where Henrik was playing, it was slightly on the left, I think, was it coming on the left-hand side, which obviously Henrik then became more as the striker role.
He made up for it.
He made up, man. I think he repaid that probably many times over.
Tom, you lifted the trophy. We saw it at the start of the programme. When you look back on all that you've achieved in your career, where does that rank?
Oh, it's the best. It's like, I'll not say simply. It was quite. It was up there. It was. You know, quite extraordinary to do it, and like a lot of the supporters, the relief of doing it was fantastic. I'd been at the club for 6 years, and that was my first championship as well. But obviously, with the added on pressure of trying to protect the history. So it was a very important year, and I think you see the joy in the faces, and I didn't want that night to stop. We had to go to bed at some stage, but we were up early, and you know, it was curtailed a lot, but we were up early the next day, go to Portugal, but I just didn't want that to stop.
And here we are 20 years later, still talking about it. I want to mention this week's Celtic View as well, a special, Seventh Heaven with the manager, but also lots of Stopping the 10 interviews on this year's Celtic View with Henrik Larsson, Harold Brackback, Tom Boyd and Murdo MacLeod. So there you go, this week's Celtic View. And of course, let's just finish up in the present day, because not only did that stop the 10 back then, but we're in a situation here, whisper it, where Celtic next season are going for 8. Could we be talking potentially in a couple of years sitting back here going for our own 10?
I think that's how important the achievement was from all the boys, was to open the door for any Celtic manager who was going to come in and go on a run like they're on just now. So they've opened the door. If Rangers had won 10 that year, then what would you be looking at? Are we going to go for 15 or something like that to try? But 10 was always a target for over all the years, from the Lisbon Lions era to Rangers going through the 90s, and for the boys to stop it, and now they've opened the door for Brendan's team to go and do 10.
There's only one team that can do that, and that will be Celtic.
So let's hope it happens. Listen, thanks very much for your company this afternoon, and I'm sure it goes without saying, but on behalf of everyone watching and myself, thank you very much to Murdo MacLeod, to Tom Boyd and to Simon Donnelly and all of the other men who stopped the 10. Bye-bye.